start off with an acknowledgement of country, and Councillor Kunzelman.
Ipswich City Council respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners as custodians of the land upon which we meet.
Grant that we, who seek to serve you in the affairs of this council, may have wisdom in our deliberations, the guiding of your hand in our works, and the grace to serve together to advance the prosperity of our city. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councillor Doyle. We'll now move on to item 3, declarations of interest in matters on the agenda. And we have 4 declarations of interest to date. Councillor Ireland has advised that she will declare a conflict of interest in item 5.8, which is rate concessions for charitable non-for-profit sporting organisations. Councillor Ireland, would you like to speak to that? The nature of your interest with the CWA?
In accordance with Section 175 of the Local Government Act 2009, I wish to inform the meeting that I have or could reasonably be taken to have a conflict of interest in recommendation C relating to attachment 4 of item 5.8, titled Rate Concessions Charitable Non-Profit Sporting Organisations. The nature of my interest is that I was a member of the Queensland Country Women's Associations in 2015-2016.
Thank you, Councillor Ireland. May I ask, Councillor Ireland, are you still a member?
No, I haven't been a member since 2016.
Okay. And were you an executive or...?
No, just a general member.
Okay. Are there any other questions of Councillor Ireland? So Councillor Ireland has moved to let us... So she says to stay in? She's leaving it up to us. Yep. So those in favour of Councillor Ireland staying in and not having a conflict of interest, please raise your hand. Note that everyone has voted except for Councillor Ireland, and to say that there is no conflict of interest. Those against, there being none against. Thank you, Councillor Ireland. So I note that there will be a change for 5.8 when we do the attachments later on, Vicky. Councillor Madsen has also advised he has a conflict of interest to declare in 5.8 in the rate concession for charitable non-for-profit sporting organisations. Councillor Madsen, would you like to explain?
Yep. In accordance with Section 175E of the Local Government Act 2009, I declare that I have, may have a conflict of interest in item 5.8, titled, sorry, the screen's just went off.
It's up on the screen.
Wait for the
Vicky rate concession for charitable, non-profit and sporting organisations. As I am a member of the executive of the Ipswich Trades Hall and Labor Day Committee, which is in attachment 5, I believe.
Right.
Listed in attachment 5.
So you are proposing that you...
I propose to deal with this matter by having the other councillors present decide if they believe there's a real or perceived conflict of interest and whether I can remain in the meeting and take part in the vote on the matter or whether I must leave the meeting place.
Right, my notes here say that you were proposing to leave the meeting.
Okay.
No, but you're wishing to put it to the vote?
Yep. I don't know. Maybe I ticked the wrong box on the form online.
So that's okay. So you're proposing that that we would put that...
Yeah, I'm happy to leave the meeting.
Be an NPO.
Sorry?
I think it's close to an NPO.
So, CEO?
No. You're proposing to leave the meeting?
Yeah.
What we should do is we can probably cut that particular part of the recommendation out, so you can vote on all the other concessions, and then we'll just leave the Trades Hall Council separately. That'd be the best way to manage it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll leave the meeting and then I'll come back in after that matter's solved.
So Councillor Madsen is proposing... as we're looking to vote, is there an MPI there? Or is it, you're going to leave?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll leave.
Okay, thank you. So there's no need for a vote. Thank you.
Apologies, I had the wrong script in front of me.
That's okay. Yes, there's a lot of them there. Councillor Tully, I understand that you also have declared a conflict of interest for the exact same item, which is 5.8, the rate concession for charitable not-for-profit and sporting organisations.
Thank you, Mayor. I declare, pursuant to Section 175E of the Local Government Act, that I have 4 matters where I may have a perceived conflict of interest, namely properties owned by the Goodna District, or rates payable by the Goodna District Rugby League Club, of which I'm a former president and former patron, the Goodna Bowls Club, of which I'm an honorary life member, the West Moreton Migrant Resource Service Incorporated, where I provide pro bono migration advice to clients of that organisation, and also the Salvation Army Queensland Property Trust, where my spouse is employed. With the permission of the meeting, I tend to remain and not vote on any of those 4 items.
Thank you. We don't need to vote on that, do we?
I think you do, don't you?
vote?
If you've declared an interest and you intend to stay in the meeting.
Can I stay in the meeting?
So just
Yep.
move that. Yeah.
So I'll move that Councillor Tully will stay in during the vote, but not participate in the vote, but stay in the meeting. All those in favour? I see that all councillors bar Councillor Tully have voted for that. Those against? There are none against. Thank you.
We need a seconder, I believe.
Oh, sorry.
I'll second.
May I have a seconder? Councillor Ireland seconded that. I'll read you the vote. Those in favour of that motion, please raise your hand. I note that all councillors bar Councillor Tully have raised their hand and support that. Those against? There being none against. Last is myself. I believe that I do have a conflict of interest. I am the patron for Ipswich Legacy, and it's one of the one of the charities that are listed here. So I propose that I deal with it in a similar manner to Councillor Tully, that I will stay in the room, but I won't vote on that particular matter. May I have a seconder for that? So Councillor Kunzelman has a seconder. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I look around, all the councillors have supported that. Sorry, I'll just check. Councillor Madsen supported that, knowing that I have not voted. Those against? Thank you. Are there any other conflicts of interest or MPIs that anyone would like to disclose? No? Thank you very much, and I appreciate everyone being forthright, especially as you get more involved in the community. These conflicts come up. We'll move straight on to the mayoral minute. My mayoral minute today is recommending that the councillors here do not take the pay rise in line with the recommendations of the Tribunal of the Queensland Government, and that money instead be put towards savings and efficiencies towards providing services for the people of Ipswich. As it's a mayoral motion, doesn't need a seconder, but I open it up for discussion. Councillor Ireland? You can say,
Standing, sorry.
we'll stay seated due to the microphones. The technology doesn't pick up the sound when we stand up.
I think that it's a very wise decision for the councillors to make. Times are tough and it's going to be a very tough budget, but we're demonstrating that we're prepared to sacrifice with all of our staff and the residents of Ipswich who are struggling. And so I think I fully support the councillors' decision.
Thank you, Councillor Ireland. Any other comments? No. Then I'll put the motion to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. And it is unanimous. Thank you very much. I now move on to the budget speech as part of my mayoral motion. Many of us started 2020 with so much promise and hope for the year ahead. It marked an important year for our city too. The promise of democracy being restored and a return of elected representatives back to these very council chambers. Reflecting back to just a short 3 months ago, as we were all getting ready to go to the polls, we were also being asked to stay at home. The novel coronavirus had started to spread in cities, and communities across the globe in Australia were at risk of following a similar trajectory, with the rapid spread of COVID-19 becoming a real threat for us. After the election, a fresh start for Ipswich represented a new era of governance and a new approach to shaping the future and our city together. But we had never imagined how a global pandemic might try its luck in shaping us first. Ipswich, however, has an unmatched resilience, and we band together in times of need. Just as we have done so through floods and fires, we kept the spread of COVID-19 at bay across our towns and suburbs. But we have still felt the pain of this pandemic. Never could we have imagined just how quickly COVID-19 would shape our everyday lives or how tough it would be. As a newly elected council, we were ready to serve and get out into our communities. But the stay-at-home order and social distancing made this impractical. Instead, we've been focused on driving a robust budget deliberation process, reflective of a fresh start and to ensure your rates deliver value. I am humbled to present your council's first budget today. Before I do so, I'd like to take a moment to share this reflection with you. After being declared into office from my backyard due to the social distancing provisions, I can clearly remember my very first day driving to the council car park as your 51st mayor. I was overcome with a rush of emotion that brought me actually to tears that morning, because as I was coming into the Roderick Street Council car park, I looked across to the local Centrelink office in East Street, and I could see a long and steady line of people snaking around the block, everyday people like you and me, who had lost their jobs in an instant with no idea how they pay their rent, how they pay their mortgage, how they pay their food and all their other bills. On one hand, I'd been given the keys to the city. On the other, I was reminded on a daily basis that the promise and hope of 2020 was a distant and forgotten memory for so many in our community as a result of COVID-19. Our city is full of opportunity. 2020 should have been an exciting moment for all of us. But it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge that the last few months has been tough for so many, and negligent for us to ignore that Australia has entered its first recession in 29 years. As the weekly news cycle relays another business closure or job losses, and economists predicting the worst is yet to come, today we are delivering a budget that is reflective of the uncertainty we all currently face. There is no escaping that COVID-19 has hurt the bottom line of family budgets, businesses, community groups, sporting groups and governments. The private sector is really hurting, and all levels of government must share the pain. But we know we cannot afford to have more job losses in our city. This budget is about sustaining jobs and creating jobs locally. I am deeply, deeply sorry to have to ask you to share this burden. Audit reports tabled in the Queensland Parliament show millions and millions and millions of dollars, over $78 million, were squandered away by the previous dismissed council. I cannot begin to express the disgust and the absolute heartbreak I have felt as I've poured through the financial data of those controlled entities established and governed by the dismissed council. When I think of every ratepayer who worked hard to balance their family budgets and pay their bills on time, some having to make the choice to go without things or another. And then I think of the same dollars being spent haphazardly and irresponsibly by those with their hands in the public purse. We've all seen the headlines. I cannot help but wonder what a different budget this could have been for the people of Ipswich. And so this is a budget for our times. Through this budget, we're asking everyone to do their small bit. So collectively, we can make a big difference to our city's future. The average rate rise to homeowners is roughly equal to one takeaway coffee a month, or 98 cents per week per household. That's an average of 2.75% per annum. We acknowledge that every dollar counts right now, and we will also continue to support those in need for extra assistance with repayment plans and other special arrangements. We will also continue to offer a pensioner concession of up to $245 a year. In today's budget, Council has resolved to run a deficit this year so that we can keep our 1,300 people employed, maintain our services, and keep buying products and services to keep the local economy moving. To ensure we buy more from local businesses, our new Buy Ipswich procurement policy will start making it easier for council and local businesses to transact. We can all do our part to keep people working and stimulating economic activity. Please, I ask you, buy local where possible. Let's keep the doors of businesses open, especially those sectors which have been heavily impacted by COVID-19, such as retail, hospitality and tourism. They need our help. Our commercial ratepayers will also be asked to share the burden through an average increase of 2.4% per annum, which affects around 2,000 properties overall. This decision has not been taken lightly, as we are aware that the commercial sector is under varying amounts of pressures. But as I said before, we must all share the burden. We will continue to provide relief to those most impacted through our expansive COVID-19 relief and recovery package launched in this budget today. I'm really pleased to announce that we have allocated $850,000 towards supporting businesses, community and sporting organisations. We propose to continue to waive and refund some fees and charges through to the end of September for businesses and organisations facing extreme hardship at an estimated cost of $250,000. This package is an express demonstration of our moral obligation to ensure those most affected have access to the support they need in these unprecedented times. In the past, Council has maintained operating surpluses, and we are committed to returning to an operating surplus in future years. However, 2020-2021 will be an exception to allow us to contribute internal funding for the region's huge capital works program. Make no mistake, I'm no show pony mayor, and this is certainly not a council promising to pull a rabbit out of a black hat. This budget is about things that actually matter. Our capital works program is not based on the shiniest or sexiest projects, so you won't have a reason to fly around the world spruiking projects. This is a budget that focuses on investing in and building assets and maintenance that actually matter and make a real difference to the everyday lives of people who choose to live and work in this great city. For the first time ever, this council has developed a 3-year capital works budget, and the projects we'll deliver will be simultaneously good for the community and good for local jobs. At a time where industry needs a boost to keep trades and services in business and people employed, we are investing $232 million in capital works and infrastructure. Our Buy Ipswich procurement policy will further enhance our ability to secure local jobs and keep the Ipswich economy ticking along. As part of the capital works budget, we have committed to $26 million towards road maintenance and rehabilitation, which will add to the amenity and livability of the city. This will be put forward towards filling over 5,000 potholes, repairing and resurfacing a network of over 1,500 kilometres of sealed road and around 260 kilometres of gravel road maintenance, and making sure that more than 26,000 streetlights continue to shine brightly around our city. We're delivering a budget based on prioritisation and real need. We're also investing $13 million into strategic transport infrastructure to ease congestion and help people get to work, school, home safer and quicker. This includes major projects like the duplication of the Springfield Parkway and the Springfield-Greenbank arterial from the Centenary Highway to Eden Station Drive. Complete the construction of Marsden Parade realignment linked with Gordon Street. Complete the detailed design of a major capacity and safety upgrade of the Redbank Plains Road between Kedges Road and Kruger Parade, which is necessary work. And also, finally, the construction of traffic signals and the stormwater drainage upgrades at the Robertson Road and Graduate intersection in Eastern Heights. Our Capital Works program will improve connectivity across our city and provide a boost to productivity. The state and federal governments have also committed to providing a combined $8.7 million in response to COVID-19. We'll be taking every opportunity to advocate to both levels of government to ensure Ipswich starts to receive our fair share of funding. Our projected population growth is 4.6%, and that's the fastest rate in Queensland, while Queensland's population growth rate is projected at 1.6% and Australia 1%. The federal and state governments receive 97% of all taxes, and local government only receive 3% to deliver on significant road maintenance, waste services and many community and sporting services. The state and federal governments need to step up and fund the Ipswich Central to Springfield Central public transport corridor, as well as a second bridge crossing for our CBD. It's long overdue and needs to be done. This will be aided by a renewed focus on transparency and accountability. Your new council can only be open, transparent and accountable about council's financial position and our plans to stimulate the economy over the next year and return the budget to surplus in the years to come. While we're committed to keeping jobs safe, we must still be held to account and perform to the highest standards on behalf of our community and find savings and efficiencies where possible. Today I'm announcing that the councillors, and also I'd like to thank the council executives who have also committed to share the burden. We have unanimously agreed not to adopt a pay rise this financial year. instead passing on the savings to deliver services to the community and relief to those really in need. As we look towards the second half of 2020, we have identified a range of opportunities to strengthen our city through the power of trust, transparency and productive partnerships. Our strategic priorities for the next year reflect what the community has told us they want. They want us to stimulate local business and job creation, preserving and protecting our environment, doing what is needed and making this a better connected community, as well as ensuring our city is governed responsibly, ethically and with an openness and transparency not seen before. I have said it before and I will continue to say this. Transparency, accountability and integrity are at the heart of good governance and must be at the centre of every action taken by this council. That responsibility is not just beholden to us as your council, but also on council officers, and I will be holding the organisation responsible for delivering on our commitments to you. The imminent launch of the Transparency and Integrity Hub will ensure a higher level of accountability over financial performance, a crucial indicator in times where fiscal constraint must be exercised. We will all have access to the details of this budget and our monthly performance against it so we can track how we're delivering. We won't always be perfect, but we will be honest with you. As we traverse the coming year, we will no doubt continue to present some difficulties. I remain optimistic about our great city. For a city that is home to the oldest and the newest urban centres in Queensland and nationally significant population growth rates, we are truly unique in Ipswich. Today, we collectively hand down a $603.4 million budget for the city of Ipswich. While we can't deliver everything to everyone, this budget will deliver hundreds and hundreds of kilometres of road construction and sealing, footpaths and bikeways, curb and channel, the upkeep of parks and reserves, and waste collection, all of which ensures the region moves along smoothly and efficiently week after week, month after month. The 2020-21 budget will ensure we recover economically from recent times and continue to deliver the very best value to our ratepayers and residents. That means the current and our future needs of the city has set the tone for the next 4 years. A considered and responsive budget and a council willing to make difficult and responsible decisions for the overall and long-term public benefit. Your new council is pragmatic and realistic, and we remain optimistic and committed to ensuring this organisation is in a remarkably better position. On behalf of all councillors, I would like to thank the community for supporting us on this journey, and we look forward to collaborating and partnering with you to deliver on the activities outlined in your operational plan and through the 2020-21 budget. Thank you. With that, we now want to move on to the operations plan.
No, we need to move
My budget speech.
Move the budget. You
Move
need
the
to
budget.
actually move.
Well, I
you need to
moved.
adopt the
I guess
budget
I
and
moved and
arrange.
seconded the budget speech. The budget?
We have to adopt the budget.
Yes.
So we need to move up.
So, Councillor Milligan is the mover. Councillor Doyle is a seconder. Open for discussion. Being no discussion, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Sorry, Councillor Madsen.
I was just going to add that while the economy is in a pretty perilous position, I think we've absolutely made the correct decision to keep our current employment levels here at council and also not defer capital works. To reduce expenditure in that way would cause the local economy to retract further, and that would be a terrible path to go down. We're absolutely going in the right path set on this budget. There's a lot going on. We don't know when the end of COVID will be, but if we keep using the information that we have and making the best decisions that we can, we're putting the city in the position that it needs to be moving forward. And I'm very proud of this budget.
Thank you, Councillor Madsen. Any other comments? With that, I'll put it to the vote. Those who vote in favour of the budget, please raise your hand. And it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to the ops plan. Got the recommendation up there. May I ask the CEO to come forward?
The council has just adopted its budget for the next financial year, and integrated with that is a long-term financial forecast. The operational plan is its companion piece, which talks about the significant changes that council intends to implement over the next 12 months that are aligned with the budget. This particular operational plan is consistent with the annual budget and highlights the key initiatives to be delivered in the year. The plan progresses the implementation of the current corporate plan, but also sets council's strategic priorities for the next 12 months. And those strategic priorities are that our natural environment is preserved and protected, our community has access to jobs and economic opportunities now and in the future, our community is cohesive, vibrant and resilient, and our thriving city centre benefits communities across the city. It's important to note that the incoming council have also identified a key priority to be the review and development of a new corporate plan during the first 9 months or so of this, the new financial year. All of the 73 key initiatives listed in the plan align to the strategic priorities and are spread across all departments of council. Whilst the plan recognises our key initiatives, it doesn't take away from the fact that council delivers on a vast range of services and work that's core business, such as collecting waste, maintaining parks, assisting with requests about animals, parking development, working with community groups, business and sporting groups. The OP plan highlights council's move from response to recovery in COVID, our advocacy for regionally significant projects such as the Ipswich Central to Springfield Public Transport Corridor, and the significant work that will be delivered for the Ipswich Central redevelopment. It also reflects that we'll be opening 2 new libraries in the next financial year, the Rosewood Library and the Ipswich Central Library. It also includes a performance plan for Ipswich Waste Services. And council is reported back to on the performance of the operational plan on a quarterly basis.
Thank you, CEO. May I have someone move the ops plan? Thank you, Councillor Fechner. May someone second it? Councillor Kunzelmann. I now open up the for discussion or questions of the CEO on the ops plan. There being none, I'll put that report to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thanks. It was voted unanimously. Thank you very much. We now move on to 5.3, the proposed 2020 to 2021 fees and charges. I ask someone to move that, please. Councillor Madsen, thank you very much. A seconder. Councillor Doyle, thank you very much. I now call on the CFO. Please state your name and position.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Harding. Councillors, my name's Jeff Keach, the CFO. In front of you, councillors, is aligned with the budget is the proposed fees and charges for the 2020 and 2021 year. A review of that has been conducted by officers with the departments and outlines the proposed changes in a detailed attachment to the report. It outlines the extension of temporary fee relief in the environmental health areas, and also some aspects in relation to the facilities hire for the first quarter of 2021. As you're aware, there's a whole list there, which I'm sure councillors reviewed, and it's there for your consideration. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions of the CFO? CFO, I must ask, what are the main financial implications of this report?
There's a proposed increase in some fees and charges of about 2% overall, which is sort of in line with the budget considerations that's just been adopted. There is some consideration there in one of the recommendations to, as highlighted by the Mayor, to waive fees and charges in relation to certain permits and licences for the first quarter, which has also been considered in the budget as well. The other area of the fees and charges will also potentially be the impacts of COVID going forward, and the uncertainty that's around in that space. So again, that's been considered as part of the budget and what might be considered there.
Any other debate? Any other questions? No, but CFO, on behalf of this council, we spent a lot of time together.
We did. We had many workshops.
Emails and a lot of workshops. I want to thank you and your team and your management chain for the amount of quality work that you've given us and guiding us and working collaboratively with us when we wanted to change things and so on. So thank you very much, CFO. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Councillors. It's been a pleasure working you through the process. Absolutely.
I feel like you should get a clap.
No, not at all. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. I now open this up for debate or discussion. There being none, I'll move it to the vote. All those who for the report, for the recommendation, please raise your hand. And it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Move on to the next item, which is 5.4. I think CFO, you may need to stay close here for the next few. I'll just check. Rates relief in response to COVID. I ask for someone to move this particular motion. Councillor Johnick, and second. Councillor Kunzelman, thank you very much. May I ask the CFO to come along? Thank you.
Thank you again, Mayor and Councillors. This report deals with some further relief for council consideration in relation to rates relief in response to COVID. Councillors recall that in relation to the before June, Council has extended the discount date for the April to June quarter to May. What this report considers now is that there's still likely to be a number of ratepayers who are struggling to pay their rates on time, and this report asks Council to consider providing some further relief in relation to further periods of time to pay, and if they enter into repayment plans with Council to pay that off over the next 12 months, that Council will look to further waive interest and provide discounts, providing those arrangements are adhered to. So the report's there for consideration for Council in relation to providing that further relief in relation to the response for COVID for rates.
Thank you. CFO, what rate relief has occurred to date?
So to date, Council has deferred the discount date, as mentioned. We've also, in relation to that, allowed payment plans to be entered into by various community groups and ratepayers who are struggling through this time. And then there's this further consideration of relief in that space.
Okay. So what does this report commit the council to do?
This report commits Council to provide a waiver of interest and provide discounts or those ratepayers who enter into repayment programs with Council over a reasonable period of time.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions of the CFO? No. Thank you, CFO.
Thank you.
I'll now open this up for debate or discussion. Councillor Johnick?
Just through the Mayor, I just wanted to say that if there are any constituents out there struggling with their rates, to do contact us and let us know of your circumstances, and that we will individualise a payment plan, most likely.
Thank you, Councillor Johnick. I think that's a very good point that the service centre is geared up to manage and assist any residents who are having hardship provisions. Councillor
Mayor, in recent weeks, I personally have played a role in working closely with residents and business owners, assisting them with navigating the way to access rate assistance and sometimes financial counselling and support. To say the least, it has been heartbreaking and at times confronting, working on the front line, assisting residents and business owners in deep financial and emotional distress. I'd just like to point out our staff at Ipswich City Council must be commended for the work on this. It speaks volumes of the culture of Ipswich Council, the general managers, management and our staff, and the type of people we employ. I am proud to work alongside this group.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Thank you. Any other discussion? Debate? In that case, I'll put the motion to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. And it's unanimous. Thank you very much. We now move on to 5.5, which is the overall plan for the Rural Fire Resources Levy charge. May I have someone move this motion? Councillor Milligan, and seconder? Councillor Doyle, thank you. Thank you, CFO. Very important part of the budget.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. This report aligns with the budget also in relation to the adoption of a plan associated with the Rural Fire Resources Levy Special Charge. So councils are required under the regulations when it's decided to levy that charge to adopt its overall plan. This report outlines the contribution that council makes to supporting rural fire services across Ipswich, both through its rural levy, and you'll note in the report that the number of properties that has levied against has decreased considerably over the last couple of years as a result of changes in urban boundaries. So this report outlines to you the amount of revenue that's raised in relation to that charge, which was adopted as part of the budget, and also a proposal that was considered in the budget in relation to another charge to support the rural fire services as a whole with more broader community support. So it's a requirement to adopt this overall plan to allow the charge to be levied associated with what was adopted in the budget.
So, it's my understanding that we work hand in hand with state government on this, with Queensland Fire and Emergency Services.
Absolutely.
What has happened in the last year or two to, I guess,
So
for this?
the urban boundaries which are reviewed, and they have changed. So the number of properties that were previously subject to the Rural Fire Service levy within the Ipswich area was higher, and the report mentions that was around about sort of 10,000 properties. As a result of the Queensland Fire Services review of those boundaries, that's now dropped down sort of in the 21 year to around about 1,900 properties.
Right.
So that obviously, in terms of the levy that was previously $42 per property, the level of revenue that would have otherwise been generated, which is contributed straight through to the rural fire services, has dropped considerably. So previous contributions there was around about the sort of $400,000 a year raised in that space. Now, when you look at the sort of 1,900 properties, the level of revenue that's raised at that charge is considerably less to support the rural fire services. So through the budget process, council therefore considered other options in relation to how it would support the rural fire services going forward. As there was a shortfall between what they requested of council in needing to fund their operations and some of their key capital, and therefore councils needed to consider how it supports the rural fire services further because of those change of boundaries.
So the levy, CFO, is $3 per household annually?
Correct.
And how much will that give to our local RFSs?
So that on top of the rural charge is anticipated that it would give, I think in total, about another $240,000 on top of what would be the estimated charges of $75,000. A little bit short of the request, but would hopefully give about $330,000 in total, therefore contribution towards the rural fire services in total.
So in total, it'll be about $330,000.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Are there any other questions of the CFO? No. Thank you, CFO. I'll now move this open for debate and discussion. Councillor Fichtner?
I support the recommendation in the paper because it's a very responsible response to the significant decrease in financial support to the rural fire services. It's easy to move on quite quickly from catastrophe to catastrophe, and we mustn't forget that last fire season a huge portion of our state was ravaged, and the people there supporting us were the rural fire services. So I think that not only is this financially responsible for us, but we owe it to the community to maintain that level of financial support because we don't know what this year will look like also. So in preparation for that, I hope we put the rural fire services in good stead, and I hope this capital injection for them is received greatly, and I hope we can put it to good use.
Thank you, Councillor Fichtner.
Through the
Councillor Milligan has the floor.
Yes, Mayor, with regard to the dramatic decrease in properties available to fund the resourcing of our rural fire services, a decision had to be made as to how to fund that. They are essential funds for the rural fire service to be able to operate, and agreeing with Councillor Fichtner in that, in particular, as everyone's memory would remind them, that last fire season being so catastrophic, we don't know what the future holds, and we must fund these services, this emergency service in particular. With Ipswich City Council local government area containing such a large area of rural aspect, then our rural fire services must be equipped and enabled to perform their role. So with respect to that, I totally support the additional $3 per annum for each rates notice, which will greatly assist the operational activities of our rural fire service.
Thank you, Councillor Worthing. Councillor Kunzelman.
I think it's a very good opportunity to recognise the effort and the bravery, shall I say, of rural fire service personnel, the amount of time that they give to not only fighting fires, obviously, but that they spend in organisation and training is considerable, and it is respectful of us to recognise that.
Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman. Deputy Mayor.
I concur with my fellow councillors. Whilst the revision of the QFES boundaries has meant that the number of property owners that will benefit, I guess, directly from the services provided by the Rural Fire Service will ultimately reduce. I'm of the view, and I know many residents will agree, that the cost of providing the service should be shared by all residents in Ipswich. Sadly, in recent years, as it's been pointed out, we've seen the catastrophic bushfires that have borne down on communities all throughout Australia. Watching media coverage of the bushfires, I don't think that there would be a single resident that wouldn't agree that the Rural Fire Service play an integral role in protecting the wider Ipswich community. We must all play our part in protecting our residents that find themselves under threat of fire.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I guess my views and thoughts, I guess, concur. We've got to look at our the hard work by our RFSs from Pine Mountain to Mount Forbes and the other brigades here. You see, not only were they fighting fires here in South East Queensland, but many of them went down to the south coast in New South Wales and other areas to help other rural parts of Australia. And we need to make sure that they are equipped, and hopefully that's paid for by other RFSs around Australia too, that if, I hope it never happens, touch wood, but if Ipswich ever needs it, that the RFSs around Australia are there to support us as well. So thank you. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand, and it's unanimous. Thank you. Now move on to 5.6, which is a concession for general rates various properties. CFO, may I have you? It looks like we're looking at concession for some social housing. Would you mind outlining what this is?
Yes, this report is in relation to a request received from the Churches of Christ Housing Limited in relation to a number of properties that they own in providing housing, and they've requested for rates concession in accordance with our policy. Council officers have reviewed that request, both looking at the eligibility of the organisation as itself in relation to the policy, and the use and purpose of the properties in relation to the policy as well, and are comfortable that those criteria are met, and therefore recommending that those properties be granted concession in accordance with that policy. And the implication of that is around about $17,000 per annum in terms of the general rates.
Any questions of the CFO? Deputy Mayor?
I was just wanting to gain some clarity, I guess, on the due diligence that's conducted year to year in relation to these organisations to ensure that they continue to be eligible for the rebate.
The officers, as part of, there's a report further coming on where every year we review these and they come back up for council for consideration. The officers do look at, from a desktop review, look at the organisations still existing and a level of understanding of whether those activities are still being conducted in that space. So as much as possible they can do a review of those. We also monitor things like if there's change of uses that come through in terms of the planning side of things, and we try to keep up on top of those as much as we can as well. So there is a review that occurs, but yes, there is a large number of properties to try to do that as part of.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions of the CFO? No, thank you very much, CFO. I now open this up for discussion and debate. There being no discussion and debate, I'll then put the motion. Oh, sorry, I didn't get a move and a seconder. Very naughty of me. May I have someone please move 5, Councillor Kunzelman, thank you very much. A seconder, Deputy Mayor, thank you. Now I'll ask for it to go to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous, thank you very much. We go to 5.7. Concession for general rebates for Crib Street, Selliers Crossing. I'll ask for someone to move this motion. Councillor Kunzelman, thank you very much. Can I have someone second that? Councillor Fichtner, thank you. CFO.
Mayor and Councillors, this is a request from the Rodri Street Community Preschool and Kindergarten in relation to a property that they own, again seeking concession of general rates. Again, officers have reviewed the organisation and the purpose for that, and it's comfortable that it's in line with Council's concession policy.
Any questions of the CFO? Thank you, CFO. I'll open this up for debate and discussion. Great little kindergarten. Why don't we go on to vote? All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We now go to 5.8. Now, 5.8, I think we're going to have to split this motion up due to the declared conflicts of interest that have occurred. And I think we're going to do some changes based on the fact that I think in this motion, attachment, I can see attachment 4, which was recommendation C, where Councillor Allen had said that she may have a conflict of interest with the CWA. That was declared, that was voted on, and there's not a conflict, so we won't need to vote on that particular one. So if you want to take me through procedurally how we...
Well, what we should do
amend?
is, so we have to do some fancy footwork through this process.
Yes.
Let me just quickly look.
We'll have to add CWA to attachment 2.
Yes,
Would be what I think
correct.
would have to
Yes.
happen. And while we're there, we'll have to remove
The Salvation
Army
Property Trust and
from
move that
attachment
into-
2 and add it into attachment 6.
Yes. I think that's pretty straightforward. And then you just move
We'll just
a
wait for
separate
Vicky.
motion for each attachment,
Okay.
creating an opportunity for Councillor Madsen to leave at the appropriate
Unfortunately, we
time.
did, yes.
More than happy to leave.
Yes.
Not throughout the whole motion, but only...
No, just for that
So
part.
we'll actually move a number of separate motions, yeah.
And obviously, as one of them, the Deputy Mayor will have to move. We'll have to check the vote for. Let me know, Vicky, when we're good to go.
So we'll move her in second. Recommendation A,
So-
move in seconded.
Yep.
So you've actually got 4 motions.
I have to do the recommendation for the changes. Recommendation for the changes?
Yeah.
This book.
Noting the changes.
So this particular recommendation I'm going to put up is just noting the changes. It's not the actual vote on the recommendations as itself. So the changes will be as outlined before, that I guess recommendation C won't be there anymore. And attachment 4, I guess, won't exist. CWA will move into attachment 2. We'll remove Salvation Army out of attachment 2 and put it into attachment 6. May I have someone move those particular amendments? Councillor Doyle, thank you very much. A seconder? Councillor Milligan, thank you very much. Any debate, discussion? All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. Right, now we'll get on to the actual recommendations. Are we okay to do that, Vicky? Yep. Okay. In the first one, recommendation A, we can all stay for that particular one. So for recommendation A, may I have a mover, please? Councillor Fichtner. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Kunzelman. Open for discussion, debate. There being none, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you, it's passed. B, I will need to step down for that because of my conflict, so I hand over to the Deputy Mayor to run that particular recommendation B.
Recommendation B. that having satisfied the criteria in Section 120 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, as well as the rates concession policy, the properties as detailed in Attachment 3 be granted 100% concession of the differential rate for the 2020-2021 financial year. May I have a mover, please?
I'll move it.
And a seconder? Thank you, Councillors Victor and Kunzelmann. Open for discussion. Now call for a vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Unanimous.
And the Mayor didn't?
No, the Mayor...
Didn't vote on
No,
that.
noting, sorry, the Mayor and
I'm
Councillor...
conflicted out, it's not an abstention. Okay. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. We're now on to recommendation, the new C, where Councillor Madsen has said he will vacate the meeting room. Thank you very much, Councillor Madsen. May I have a mover for recommendation C, please? Councillor Kunzelmann, thank you. May I have a seconder? Councillor Milligan, thank you. I'll now open it up for discussion. There being no discussion, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous, noting that Councillor Madsen is not able to vote as he's conflicted out. Thank you. May we ask for Councillor Madsen to please come into the room? We didn't go too far away. Welcome back, Councillor Madsen. We'll then move on to the new recommendation D, where Councillor Tully has already stated his conflict, so we'll sit out of this vote. Now please have a mover to Councillor D. Councillor Fechner, thank you. A seconder. Councillor Kunzelmann, thank you. I'll open up for discussion. There being no discussion, I'll move to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. Note that everyone voted except for Councillor Tully, who was conflicted out of that. There. We'll now move on to 5.9, Council discretionary funds. I ask Mr. Poll, the relevant General Manager, to come to the stand. I ask you to please state your name and your position, please.
Good morning, Mayor and Councillors. Ben Poll, General Manager, Community, Cultural and Economic Development.
Mr. Poll, you'll know from the workshops that we've had that I guess this was quite a contentious, so we had a lot of discussion around this because of what happened with the previous council. And certainly this council showed a strong commitment to being open with this and whether we even have one or not. Do you mind taking us through what this policy that we're proposing will do?
Absolutely, thank you. So item 5.9, page 583, is a report recommending the introduction of the Councillor Discretionary Funds Policy. This policy has been developed in line with Section 202 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 and in consultation with the guidelines provided by the Department of Local Government, Racing and Multicultural Affairs. Officers have also reviewed and adopted discretionary funding policy and procedure from other Queensland councils in the development of this program. Councillor Discretionary Funds policy and program is substantially different to the previous discretionary funding of council. As per the new regulation, total discretionary funds are limited to $18,000 per councillor per annum. Applications will first be assessed by officers in accordance with the eligibility criteria, and eligible applications will be considered and approved at the discretion of the Mayor and councillors via Smarty Grants, where all information relating to funding will be recorded. Council will maintain a record of all allocated discretionary funding and will publish this notice on Council's website, including the name of each organisation receiving funds and the amount and purpose of that funding. Discretionary funding will also be reported in Council's annual report in accordance with the Local Government Regulation 2012. As part of Council's broader community funding and support programs, Councillor discretionary funds provide a direct and quick response support for community organisations and recognise the role they play in developing and delivering initiatives that benefit the residents of Ipswich and respond to an identified community need. It's recommended that the Councillor discretionary funds policy be adopted.
Thank you, Mr Poll. And it was remiss of me, I didn't ask for a mover of this particular motion. I asked for a mover. Councillor Kunzelman, thank you. And a seconder. Councillor Drummond, thank you very much. Any questions for Mr Poll? On this? I ask Mr Poll, noting the nature of this grant amongst other grants that we'll be discussing in the next motion, what is the quickest turnaround time that this grant could occur for a community group or sporting group?
I believe the preferred time frame for this is a 7-day turnaround, 7 days.
Thank you. Thank you. Is any other grant program that we're going to be looking at allow for a 7-day turnaround, or is this the only one?
We do have a quick response grant program as well, which aims for a similar, if not same, but a similar turnaround time frame. Its purpose is, I suppose, slightly different, and the process goes through the council administration as opposed to being ultimately at the discretion of the divisional councillors. So there is a similar, smaller program in place that allows council officers to also provide a quick response, but not at the scale that the discretionary funds allows for.
Okay. Are there any other questions of Mr Poll? No. Thank you, Mr Poll. I now open the floor for debate or discussion. Councillor Kunzelman.
I can understand why people might be concerned about councillors getting their hands on discretionary funds, but I support the council officers and the efforts that they've made to make these particular funds so easy. I was going to say easy to get, but I meant I appreciate the quick turnaround and the role of councillor officers in monitoring these funds. So they're not going out like from our offices to the public without surveillance. And I applaud them also for the plan of the reporting transparency as well. And I'm very happy to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman.
Through the Mayor, I concur with Councillor Kunzelman. I'm satisfied that we have appropriate measures and governance in place to monitor these contributions to ensure that absolutely everybody is doing the right thing and it ends up with those that truly should benefit.
Councillor Milligan.
Mayor, it's no secret to yourself or my fellow councillors, I had great apprehension with regards to councillor discretionary funds. However, through our process of workshopping and pulling it apart and getting it right, I would like to commend Mr Poll in his role as General Manager of Community, Cultural and Economic Development and his staff for putting together what I now believe is a policy that aligns with with this council's views on integrity and transparency, whilst at the same time delivering to the community a particular need. So with the changes that we've gone through over many weeks and discussions, I'm quite happy now with the end result.
Thank you, Councillor Milligan. Yes, you were quite vocal in our workshops. Councillor Madsen.
I'd just like to add that I shared a lot of the scepticism that Councillor Milligan brought forward and just really make it clear that this is probably something that I'll lose sleep over in ensuring that these funds are used to maximum benefit of the community, and it's the community's interest at heart with this sort of program.
Thank you, Councillor Madsen. Just for my comment, under the local government regulation, it allows 0.1% of the local government's revenue from general rates to be used used for discretionary fund. Where this proposal is looking at, to be open, is looking at each councillor, so there's 9 of us, for up to $18,000 for use of discretionary funding, up to $1,000 for each, event, and the councils can pool. That will be checked by council officers, but also be transparent. Previously under the previous, so that's a total of $162,000 for a year that it could be. Under the previous council, it was actually $1.4 million. So it's being tracked. It's being done within the regulations. If there's no other comment, I will move to approve this motion. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Move on to the last item, 5.10, community funding and support programs. I'll ask for someone to move this motion, move this recommendation. Councillor Kunzelmann, thank you. A seconder? Councillor Fechner, thank you. Mr Poll, thank you. May you take us through the new grants here on pages 598 and 599? A summary?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So item 5.10 on the agenda, starting at page 595, is a report outlining Council's community funding and support programs to be delivered from the 1st of July 2020. So this framework refines the process for community stakeholders to access funding and support. It increases options and frequency of access to funding and support. The revised framework introduces Council's substantial COVID-19 recovery funds, and it ensures the alignment of the councillor discretionary funding program within the broader mix of funding and support. The report and its recommendations are consistent with the Local Government Act 2009 and the Local Government Regulation 2012. Provision of funding through the community funding and support programs will be done in accordance with the community funding and support policy and associated administrative guidelines. The funds have been allocated within the 2020-2021 budget, and it's recommended that the report concerning Council's community funding and support programs be received and its contents noted. Happy to discuss the programs themselves in further detail, if you'd like, Mayor and Councillors.
I just had a question about the 2 temporary funds, Repair and Replacement and Community Operational Support Fund. Do you see a date as an end to those?
The guidelines are being finalised as we speak in consultation with stakeholders. At this point in time, we expect those funds to potentially be open for 3 months or until the allocated funds have been totally spent.
Okay.
Councillor Milligan?
Mr Poll, I note with respect to application process that grant writing workshops are continuing, which is fantastic. But I note the in-person support and the online resources, are they additional to what has been offered in the past, or is that also a continuation?
No, it's the same amount of resources are being allocated towards that service or that function. I think we all, though, recognise that particularly in times like these, the demand for those resources will certainly increase. So we'll be monitoring and evaluating that, and if we believe we need to put extra capabilities or capacity on assisting the community in funding and grant writing, then we're more than willing to do that. We believe that's a role and a function that Council can play at this time for our stakeholders in the community.
That's fantastic. There's a lot of community groups out there where memberships and executive of those groups may not have the elevated skills required to process things through, and Council providing that support, I think, is a great initiative.
Any other questions of Mr Poll? Mr Madsen?
Following on, through the Mayor, sorry. Following on from Councillor Kunzelmann's question, what I've got in front of me suggests that the Community Repair and Replacement Fund applications would only be open during July. Is that correct? Page 597.
1st July.
Yes, I can.
Yeah,
If I could
close on-
direct to the top of the page of 597. It says enclosed on the 31st of July.
Yes.
June, possibly. June, possibly.
That is the way that it's been presented here on this paper.
Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah. Councillor Mills, I guess when we go to do the recommendation, if you'd like to move for that to change, I guess will we ask Mr. Poll on what date you'd like to change it to, what the implications are, perhaps?
Through the Mayor, Mr. Poll, what would your recommendation be as to how long that application should be open for the public?
Sorry, but he's already made a recommendation. I guess if you want to put another time in there to make it...
Well, would there be any reason for it to be longer than a month?
I think it would be appropriate for it to be extended beyond 1 month. I previously suggested that perhaps a 3-month period was what was originally considered by the group. I can't qualify as to why that date was changed to 1 month.
Okay.
But I'd be happy to receive from the Mayor and Councillors an alternative direction to leave that open for a bit longer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Poll.
Thank you.
Made some to move variation.
So I'll open this up for debate and discussion. Councillor Kunzelman.
I'd like to make some of the similar comments to what I made before. I'd like to thank council officers for simplification of this program, and that is certainly a response to what residents have been telling us. We note that the grant writing, as an example, is an example of capacity building, and I applaud the reporting transparency as well. It does make us realise the importance of local community groups and the work that they do and how they keep our community together.
Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman. Picking up on the good pick up from Councillor Madsen here, just rereading both the COVID recovery support funding programs, whilst it does talk about the Ipswich Community Repair and Replacement Fund going from the 1st of July to the 31st of July. But the next one, the Ipswich Community Operational Support Fund, there are no timings on that at all. So I think, would you like to move a variation, Councillor Madsen?
Through the Mayor, I would just like to understand what my fellow councillors feel would be appropriate. Encouraging it to be only 1 month would get people moving, get the applications in, get that work started, which is good for the local economy to get that happening as soon as possible. But we would like, I think there's grounds for a longer timeline, ensure more applications are made.
Councillor Kunzelman.
I'm mindful of this as being a responsiveness issue and a need to get along with it. What would you suggest, may I ask?
So through myself.
Through the
Sorry,
Mayor.
through the Chair.
Councillor Madsen, I think Councillor Kunzelman's asked.
Through the Mayor, I'm quite happy with 1 month, but the 3-month figure was floated and yeah.
I think.
Sorry, excuse me, sorry.
Sorry.
Councillor Milligan.
Yes.
Councillor Doyle had the...
Through the Mayor, I agree that 3 months may be a little too long. It may draw things out. I'm thinking 60 days would be an appropriate time period for a response by community groups.
Mayor, I note in the funding and support program and schedule that the Ipswich Community Repair and Replacement Fund has a budget cap of $300,000, and each application can acquire up to $7,500. So I would wonder whether within 1 month or even 60 days that would have enough community groups make application to get anywhere near that amount that we've budgeted. If we have budgeted for, it's for a one-off funding program in response to COVID-19. There's probably a lot of things going on within our community groups, so I would probably tend more to at least the 3-month period that Councillor Madsen is suggesting.
So I think Councillor Corns, when you going to make then go to...
Yes, through you, Mayor. It's my understanding this is going to be wrapped up in 3 months, not still receiving applications at the 3-month point. Am I wrong?
I guess that's something we could ask Mr. Poll, which I'll...
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillor.
Mr. Poll, I think Councillor Kunzelman had a noting that the recommendation of this report is for it to be 1 month. So if we're asking Mr. Poll about, I guess we ask what his views are on the 3-month.
My question is that if we talk about this being a 3-month project, we're talking about it being wrapped up in 3 months, aren't we?
Applications being open for 3 months would be the the
okay.
timeframe that we'll be putting on this will be. And if I may just upfront apologise, what we've captured here is a summary of these programs. There are guidelines and processes that have been developed by the officers, which go into the detail of these. Obviously, that detail hasn't been captured in the report. But yes, the suggestion of a time frame would relate to the time period for applications to be open. So that would be the first time period we'd need to resolve. The second being that the funds would be expended within the financial year, so the 2021 financial year.
Okay. Good. Thank you, Mr. Poll. Just want to clarify before we go to Councillor Fichtner that it's up to us here to decide when we want to open, how long we wish to open for, how many rounds and things like that. So Mr. Poll can provide advice on those areas that we're looking at. Councillor Fichtner?
Just through the Mayor, and I probably call on Councillor Johnnick's expertise here and speak to my own experience. Business owners and people who need help recovering or assistance through COVID-19, it might be worth actually starting the program in a month's time so as to give council opportunity to let the community know that these are actually available. It's a very busy time of year for people looking, to settle their finances from the previous financial year. So I just think that maybe an extension of the start date to give us time, to give our local individuals and businesses time to access the grant. What's your opinion on that?
Thank you. I think I know Councillor Madsen had his hand up first, and then I'll go to...
I just wanted to add quickly that it does say that it would start from tomorrow. So.
Correct. It does say that. Councillor Johnnick?
Through the Mayor, I 100% agree with Councillor...
Sorry, could you speak up a bit?
Sorry, I 100% agree with Councillor Fichtner. It is a busy time of the year for business and groups, so I think that having time to consult with the community to let them know what's available and then for them to get themselves organised to then apply and with all the other obligations they have at this time. I think going from the 1st of July might be a bit too ambitious.
In that case, judging from the feel of the room, would there be more of an interest? Because obviously once it's opened, applications usually aren't assessed until it's closed. So would it be, do you think, more practical if we made a variation to say it's open from the 1st of August and closed the 31st of August? I guess I put that to the fore.
The issue, I would say, is that there's probably some community and sporting groups that would need this sort of funding now. So if we're deferring the closing
just
of
through
applications...
the Mayor.
Stop, please.
If we defer the closing of applications, that could be an unintended consequence.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Councillor Fichtner.
Just, through the Mayor, and acknowledging the budget speech where you stated that economists postulating that the worst is yet to come, maybe holding this off might not be such a bad idea, in that if we're not feeling the full effects of COVID-19 now, there might be community groups even more needy. So I think that however we administer it, it will be a benefit to the community. But I just have questions around the timing and the logic that goes into maybe pushing it through as of tomorrow.
Thank you, Councillor Fickner. I also look at the fact that it does take time to write grants whilst it opens tomorrow. It may take a few weeks to get things together. It might be a difficult time frame to adhere to. Councillor Tully.
Through the Mayor, I'm not sure there's any need to defer the commencing date because organisations, some may be geared up to apply earlier. What's more critical is, and they shouldn't be ruled invalid, for example, if it was the 1st of August and they sent it in on the 28th of July, well, it'd be ruled invalid because they applied before the opening date. I think the critical thing is, do we at this stage open it for 3 months or 2 months? I'm happy to support either, like either to the end of August or the end of September.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Tully. Councillor.
They're going to be assessed on first in, first served in that regard. So the people that are geared up to go tomorrow, well, for instance, might have an advantage. As per first come, first served.
Well, there's really two options. I think our normal process would be we would wait until it closed, and then you would assess all options. That's generally if you're oversubscribed. So that's the risk. That otherwise you'd end up getting the first 20 to apply at full freight, and the next 20 might only get 20 cents on the dollar. Is to assess it as time goes by, and then fairly easy. It'll actually be getting quotes because that's what you'll need to provide is quotes for whatever work you're going to do, and get an idea about what they're going to do. This is on the Community Repair and Replacement Fund. This is getting a quote from a painter or a plumber or whoever it is somebody who's going to redo a kitchen in a sporting club. Is going to be the time issue, I think.
Mayor, I'll move an amendment to that page.
If you do a variation, if that would be
variation, yeah,
thank you.
till obviously from the 1st of July to the 31st of August.
The variation would be the 1st of July to the 31st of August?
Well, to add the words to the 31st of August.
For the, let me just get it right.
The receipt of applications.
For the Ipswich Community Repair and Replacement Fund?
Yes. For the receipt of applications.
Now,
and at that stage, I take it from what's said that it'd be appropriate to assess the applications at the end of that period. If there's money still left in the fund, it's still open for this council to invite a second round. I think it probably covers many of the comments that I've heard this morning.
So, Councillor Taylor, can I just get you to, are you able to see the screen from there? It's not the community.
Open on the first. Open on the 1st of
It's actually
July.
the Community Repair and Replacement Fund, not Community Care. Sorry. Repair.
Open on 1 July and close on 31st of August.
Now, the original mover of that was Councillor Kunzelman. Are you comfortable with that?
I'm very comfortable with that, thank you.
Councillor Fickner, you were the seconder. You're comfortable with that? Okay, so that is now the new motion. Do we have any other debate or discussion? Okay, so move straight to the vote. Those in favour, please raise your hand. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. It is the final motion for today. So I close the meeting at 10:50. Thank you very much for this meeting and the first budget.